Peace and blessings, family. Today is the fourth day of Kwanzaa, and a blessed Kwanzaa to all of you. And the principle that's celebrated today is Ujamaa, which basically is the principle of cooperative economics, basically collective economic strength, and meeting common needs through mutual support. Everybody has a stake, and so everybody pitches in and does what they can so that the community has what it needs. I know that we're told that we live in a democratic, government. We live under a democratic government, but I think it's safe to say that this is not really a democracy. This is what we would call a polyarchy, which basically means that the power of the government to decide and dictate, the policies that affect the lives of the majority are held in the hands of a few, which some could call the ruling class, or the wealthy, which shows you that it's not money. Basically is what dictates, policy, power, politics. Elections are not really elections, they're auctions. And the presidency, the prize, basically, be it becoming governor or mayor or whatever, goes to the highest bidder, the one who can put up the most money, to travel the most, to run nonstop, to gain support, basically are the ones that get the prize at the end of the day. And, I think the Black community has not been as influential in that auction, so to speak, as we could be. We have a Black president, okay, but what does that mean for us, really, at the end of the day? I think similarly to after the Civil Rights era, and really I believe Civil Rights era never ended, we just sat down because we got comfortable. I think that same measure of comfort, if we're not careful, can cause us to ignore the fact that we don't have a say. We don't have a stake. Yes, we have a Black president, but the Black community does not have a say in the laws that are passed, in the goings on Capitol Hill that trickle down and affect, us from the national, to state, to local governments. And that goes all the way down to everything, down to what your child is studying in school. My kid is doing this stupid Common Core, program in his basically in their curriculum, and it's so anyway. It trickles down on every level, and if we don't find ways to change that, then we will always lag behind. Then we will always be frustrated with police brutality and their presence in our neighborhoods. We will always be, needing better hospitals, better schools. We will always be on the tail end of things. And so this is where cooperative economics comes in. They say without a vision, the people perish. Without being able to collectively come together and say, this is what we need to do, we need to target our energy in these ways, we need to target our funds in this way, then where can we go but squander time and resources? And really, we're supposed to be faithful stewards of time, money, talents, and I think we could improve on that. So I kind of was studying, I've been studying up on a lot of these things, but, today I kind of tried to see what I'd want to share with you all. And I came across a few things. I used to live in a co-op. I lived in a couple, actually. And basically, it's where people just come together share common space. You can be it can be as involved or uninvolved as you prefer for it to be. At one point I lived in an intentional community where we basically shared everything, and including our targeted, focused mission. Like, we had a task that we all collectively, carried out every day for the community. But I'd really like to introduce, for any of us that don't know about this way of living, way of conducting business, co-ops. Cooperatives basically, quite simply, are ways that a collective or group of people can come together, and based on their common needs, common beliefs, common community, band together and create something of which they all have a stake. They share in the profits of it. They share in the benefits of it. They vote and decide who is director or who is, whatever the leadership roles are. And they conduct themselves in this way, pooling their resources together. And there's several different kinds of co-ops. You have agricultural co-ops, you have housing co-ops, you have educational co-ops, you have, student co-ops, you have childcare co-ops, you have credit unions. Instead of using Bank of America and Chase and Wells Fargo and all of them, you can choose a credit union, which is a not-for-profit, organization that has its stake within a specific community of people. They decide who runs it. The leaders or directors of it. It's member owned, and it's basically a financial cooperative that keeps the money in your community, that is transparent about what they're doing with the money and where it's going, and it's not, causing you to bleed out for this fee or that fee every month, the way that some of our bigger banks are. They're business co-ops. There are several different ways for people to come together and say, this is the knowledge that I have, these are the resources that I have, this is what I can bring to the table. So let's all come together and chip in and figure out how to create something new and better than what has been. And that's what we're in need of, family. We're in need of a new way. Honestly, I hear a lot of talk, and I understand it, of Black economics and ways to strengthen Black economics. I do believe in buying Black. I do believe in us supporting Black businesses, so that we can increase our economic power, therefore increase our political power. Because let's face it, right now we're hemorrhaging, literally and figuratively. If we don't do something, then how are we going to bring about change in our policies and our government that affect our children, that affect our elderly, that affect, our incarcerated populations, that affect us in our comings and goings every day? And so while I agree with those feelings and that mentality, I'm conflicted because I am not a capitalist. I am of the mind that we need to shake this whole system and turn it on its head. That, any system that inherently requires for there to be an underdog, for there to be the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots, for it to work, to me is inherently flawed and should be done away with. I definitely plan on doing a video later at another time with more on co-ops. I mentioned yesterday restorative justice. I'd like to do a video specifically on restorative justice. And I'd like to do a video on post-capitalist methods of, basically dealing with the economics of our government, of our people. But that's for another video. But I do think it's important, though, before I move on from that point, that we do start looking at alternative methods. What we have is broken. It's flawed. It's broken, and it's only working for certain people. It's not working for most of us. It's only working for the small percentage of people who are skimming the cream off the top, and the rest of us get the dregs. And we're all feeling the burden. We're all feeling the heat. We're all feeling the sting of it all. Everybody's working so hard. Everybody's living hand to mouth. How is it that we go to work and we work and we work and we work and we slave away and we do what we have to do every day, and most of us are living hand to mouth, not even hand to mouth. It's just air, because everything that you're making has already been spent a lot of times. There's so much debt that people are living under. This system is a joke, And when you look at the fact that, I have a small percentage of people with this wealth, and therefore that small percentage of people run, and dictate what happens within the nation, instead of being a democracy, it's a polyarchy, because this ain't no democracy. Democracy means that every man is created, every man and woman, every being, every person is created equal. But that's not what we're seeing. It's if you have enough money, then you have enough of a voice. Your voice is louder and magnified the more money that you have. And when you don't have a lot of money, you're not even a squeak. And the squeakiest wheel gets the grease. I mean, we learned that. Our elders have been telling us that. So in the meantime, before we just turn it all topsy-turvy, because I understand things like that take time, and I think we have to be responsible about, what comes next after this system of things. And it is my hope that that capitalist system falls and crumbles. I understand that in the meantime, we have to do something. And so, yes, I do believe that we have to become economically independent and strong. I think that, the fact that, we've heard it said many times over that the Jewish community or the Chinese community, that their dollar bounces back and forth within their community so many times before it exits their community, and that in the Black community, I mean, does it ever bounce? Like, is there anything? I mean, we need to build more things for it to bounce against. We need to create. We need to be more enterprising. And for those of us who are daring enough to enterprise and jump out there and say, you know what, I'm gonna, create this and have the faith that if I build it, they will come. Well, then we need to come. We need to spend our dollar there. We can't come from the voting booth and be so smug over the fact that we voted and be looking at the people who didn't, like you're what's wrong with society, and we have our I voted today sticker on. And then we go and we take our little green dollar and we spend it at Starbucks as we pass by all the mom and pop areas, restaurants and bodegas and shops and everything in our community that actually can serve the community. What your dollar is your vote. I don't care what mark you checked off or how, whatever button you pushed or whatever hole you punched. It doesn't matter. Like, if you don't put your dollar where your mouth is, so to speak, where your issues are, then it's a moot point. I don't care who you vote for. If you're not going to put your dollar, when you walk away from that poll in the right areas, then it doesn't matter. You've disenfranchised yourself. So yes, it's extremely important for us to be mindful of that. Because if we want to see better schools, better hospitals, if we want to see, any change in the poverty levels in our communities, then we need to band together, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of the needs of our community, because poverty in our communities, you know, breeds violence, breeds a loss of self-respect, breeds depression, breeds trauma, breeds lethargy, breeds a lot of things. Poverty. And when you're kept impoverished, and when you keep yourselves impoverished, when we keep ourselves impoverished, then, I mean, we're just perpetuating a cycle that's been in effect for a very long time. And when you look at the schools, what they're teaching our children, and the ways that they're being taught, the ways that I was educated in that system, the way that I've been taught to understand my own history, then it's easy to see where complacency comes in. That's how you control a people. You get them when they're young, and you water down their history, and you make them complacent, and then they just are like, well, this is just the way things are. This is our society. It doesn't have to be that way. Burn it down and rearrange it all, if that's what needs be, you know. And I'm sure I'll get flack for saying that from some people, but I'm fed up. I feel like what is dangerous, and not just dangerous to people who look like me, dangerous to us all. There's a real loss of value of human life that's happening now. And it's happening on a race level. It's happening on an economic level. And really, race and economics, to me, go hand in hand. It's not there. We live in a society that systematically keeps, black and brown populations of people crippled, But those lines run along, poverty lines as well, and the gap between the rich and the poor is getting ever wider and wider and wider, and people are feeling the sting and the strain more and more, But in order to make any real change, we've got to put our money where our mouth is, and we've got to stop bleeding it out everywhere. There's so many smart ways to save money. These cooperative housing co-ops, childcare co-ops. There are ways to have worker co-ops. There are all kinds of ways to band together. The old saying that like fingers in and of themselves, or strands of rope by themselves, may be weak, but when you braid them together, when you clench it into a fist, it becomes a powerful force to reckon with. And so the idea of pulling together resources, pulling together strength and energy and voice and knowledge and wisdom, and it's a very powerful concept, and I promise you that I will speak more on co-ops in another video later. But yeah, I just encourage us to ask questions. That's part of why I'm doing this, is to just ask questions, to just be introspective and say, what are these principles showing me, and how can I apply them to everyday life? It's not just during this season and this time that we observe it, but this is our community. These are our families that we're, talking about. And it's not just 7 days in winter. It's every day of our lives. And so these principles, we have to be walking with them at all times, So I just encourage us to ask questions. Ask questions. Study. Research capitalism. Understand what it is. Research, economics. Learn about the history of Black economics. Understand global economics. I think we need to really pay attention to also the ways in which the diaspora can serve the continent of Africa, where we've all come from, in our ancestry. How can we serve Africa through, the fact that we're all carried and dispersed all over the world? But how can we make it work for her? you know? There are a lot of questions. I just encourage us to ask them, because the power often isn't just in the answer, it's in the question. And there are a lot of things that we've been fed, and ways that we've been coerced into thinking and tripping ourselves up, that unless we question, we won't free our minds. You know, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. That doesn't happen by just sitting around reading their books and their history and like just buying everything that we're sold, you know. It means that we have to question and say, it looks like you're giving me a 6 for a 9, you know. Anyway, I am thankful for all of you that are listening. You know, I'm sorry for any incohesion today. Or lack of cohesion, I should say today. I'm a little sick, but I've been promising that I'll be doing these videos every day, and so I'm sticking to my word, because that's part of my, you know, desire as a person, to continually stick to my word and to not feel disempowered. You know, I have a computer, I have a voice, I have a brain, I've learned some things, there's always resources available, and I can share them. And I encourage you all to do the same thing. You know, share your knowledge, share what you know, share your questions. You know, a lot of what I have are questions, you know, but it's good for us to ask questions, the right questions, you know. At any rate, bless Kwanzaa to you all. Thank you so much for listening. May the Most High guide and protect each and every one of you in your comings and your goings. Continue to grow, continue to be seeking light. Seek and you'll find, you know, ask and you'll receive. Continue to be strengthened and to strengthen each other. Be love. I'm Dani Day Watson. Bless.